The chains bite into her ankles. Joan kneels on cold stone. 5 guards stand around her. She is 19 years old. The wooden block behind her is stained dark. She doesn't look at it. Her hands are bound with rope so tight her fingers have gone white. One guard spits near her feet. Another laughs. They call her a witch. They call her a demon. They call her whore. She says nothing. But 6 months ago, these same men ran from her banner. She led an army that shattered the English siege at Orleans. She stood beside a prince and made him a king. She turned the war, and now she sits chained in a cell, owned by the enemy. This is no dungeon for criminals. This is a trophy room. The English didn't capture her to punish her. They captured her to erase her. Forget the movies. Forget the paintings of the saint in silver armor. I will show you the 3 files they buried, the sail, the trap, the erasure. By the end, you will know what they did to her, and you will know why they needed her to burn. Chapter 1. The Sail. May 23rd, 1430. Joan falls from her horse outside the town of Compiègne. Burgundian soldiers swarm her. She fights. She swings her sword until they rip it from her grip. They drag her into their camp. She is the most valuable prisoner in France, not because she is dangerous, because she is proof. Proof that God chose Charles. Proof that France can win. Proof that the English occupation is not destiny. The Burgundians held her for 6 months. They do not want her. They want money. In November, English comes with a price. 10,000 francs, the equivalent cost of 1,000 war horses. The Burgundians take the gold. Jean is transferred to Rouen. Rouen is the capital of English-occupied France. It is not a French city anymore. It is an English fortress. And inside that fortress, Joan is placed in the castle of Bou. The Earl of Warwick owns it. He assigns 5 guards to her cell, 3 inside, 2 outside. She is chained to a wooden block even when she sleeps. Iron shackles lock around her feet. The guards never leave. She has no privacy, no rest, no moment where hostile eyes are not watching her. This violates every rule of church law. Canon law is clear. A woman accused of heresy must be held in a church prison. Women must guard her. Nuns, usually. Not soldiers, not men, not enemies. But Joan is not given a church prison. She is given a military in a war fortress. The English do not care about the law. They care about control. And they have purchased the right to destroy her. Chapter 2. The trap begins. January 3rd, 1431. An edict is issued. Joan is charged with heresy. She will be tried in the church court. The judge is Pierre Cauchon, Bishop of Beauvais, a man who has served the English occupation for years, a man who has been paid by the English crown. The charges are listed in a document 42 pages long. She wore men's clothing. She claimed to hear God's voice. She refused to submit to church authority. If the court finds her guilty, she will burn. The trial begins on February 21st. Joan is brought into the chapel of the castle. She is still chained. Her wrists are raw. 42 clerics sit in rows before her. Pierre Cauchon sits at the center. He does not look at her like a judge. He looks at her like a hunter looks at prey. He asks her to swear an oath. She agrees to answer truthfully, but she refuses to betray King Charles. Cauchon smiles. He has her exactly where he wants her. The interrogations last for weeks. Nearly a dozen sessions between February and March. The clerics ask the same questions again and again. They are not seeking the truth. They are looking for a trap. One cleric asks her, "Are you in a state of grace?" The question is a snare. Church doctrine says no person can know if they have God's grace. If she says yes, she contradicts the church. If she says no, she admits her visions are false. Either answer is heresy. Joan stares at him. Then she speaks. "If I am not, may God place me there. If I am, may God keep me there." The room goes silent. Even her enemies cannot fault the answer. But they do not stop. They ask her about the voices. Saint Catherine, Saint Margaret, Saint Michael. She describes them. She tells them the voices gave her a mission. The clerics write everything down. They twist her words in the record. They add phrases she never said. They make her sound proud, defiant, dangerous. One tribunal member steps down. He says testimony is being coerced. He says this is no trial. It is a performance. Another cleric challenges Cauchon's authority. He is arrested immediately. Joan is alone. Santa the cells. Every night, Joan returns to her cell. The guards are waiting. They mock her. They call her names. One tries to touch her. She screams. The Earl of Warwick arrives and pulls the guard back. Not because he cares, because the English paid 10,000 francs for her. She must survive long enough to be condemned. Joan begs for a woman's dress. The guards refuse. She begs to be moved to a church prison. Refused. She asks a priest to hear her confession. Denied. She falls ill. Fever burns through her. She believes she will die. She asks to be buried in sacred ground. They laugh. The sickness passes. She survives. But she understands now. They will not let her die in peace. They need her to burn in public. Joan asks why she must wear men's clothing to be guilty. The clerics say it is unnatural. It is wicked. It violates the Bible. Joan argues. She says men's clothing protects her. It is tied, laced, difficult to remove. A dress leaves her open to attack. She is surrounded by male soldiers every hour of every day. How is it more appropriate to wear a dress before them? The clerics dismiss her. The law is the law. The trial is not about logic, it is about paperwork, and the paperwork has already been written. Chapter 3, The Verdict. May 23rd, 1431. Joan is dragged into the tribunal room. She has been jailed for 5 months. Her hair is matted, her skin is pale, the chains have left scars on her ankles. Pierre Cauchon. He holds a document, he reads it aloud. The University of Paris has reviewed her case. The theologians have concluded. Her voices are not from God, they are demons. Her clothing is unnatural, wicked, an abomination. Her refusal to submit to the church makes her a heretic. She has one choice: recant, admit she lied, admit she deceived France, or burn. He unfolds the document. He looks at her. What do you say? Joan does not answer. She is 19. She has been interrogated for 3 months. She has been chained for 5. She has not seen sunlight. She has not felt safe. She has not heard a kind voice. She stares at the floor. Cauchon signals the guards. Take her to the cemetery. Chapter 4, The Cemetery Trap. May 24th, 1431. The cemetery of St. Ouen. A crowd fills the square. Hundreds of people. English soldiers line the edges. In the centre stands a wooden platform, and beside it, a stake. Joan is led onto the platform. Her hands are still bound. She sees the stake. She sees the wood piled around it. She sees the executioner holding a torch. This is not a trial anymore. This is an execution rehearsal. And climbs onto the platform beside her. He holds the document again. He reads the charges: heresy, witchcraft, deception, rebellion against God's church. Crowd listens. Some jeers. Some are silent. Joan begins to shake. A cleric steps forward. He holds a paper. Sign this, he says. Admit your sins. Swear you will never wear men's clothing again. Submit to the church, and you will live. Joan looks at the stake. She looks at the torch. She looks at the paper. Her hand trembles. She takes the pen. She signs. The crowd erupts. Some cheer. Some curse her as a coward. Cauchon smiles. He announces her sentence. Not death. Perpetual imprisonment. Life in chains. But life. Joan is given a woman's dress. She puts it on. The guards take her back to her cell. She has survived, but she has lost everything. She admitted she lied. She admitted she deceived France. She admitted the voices were false. King Charles will not save her now. No one will. Chapter 5. The Second Trap. 3 days later, Tom visits her cell. He opens the door. He stops. Joan is sitting on the floor. She is wearing men's clothing again. Cauchon stares. Why? He asks. Joan does not look at him. The voices came back. St. Catherine, St. Margaret, they told me I sinned, not have denied them. John writes this down. But that is not the full story. At the rehabilitation trial 25 years later, witnesses tell a different version. They say the guards stole her dress overnight. They say they left her nothing but the men's clothing. They say she begged for the dress back. They say the guards refused. She had no choice. She puts on the men's clothing, or remains naked in a cell with 5 men. But Cauchon does not mind the truth. He cares about the paperwork. Joan wore men's clothing after swearing not to. That is relapse. And under canon law, a relapsed heretic cannot be saved. Chapter 6. The final session. May 28, 1431. Cauchon returns with 7 other judges. They interrogate her in the cell. "Why did you put the clothing back on?" Joan answers. "I needed protection. Men surround me. The dress left me vulnerable, and my voices told me I was wrong to deny them." Cauchon writes, "So you admit the voices returned?" "Yes, and you admit you trust them more than the church?" Joan hesitates. "I trust God. The church is God's voice on earth," Cauchon says. "If you defy us, you defy him." Joan says nothing. The judges leave. They meet in another room. The vote is unanimous. She is a relapsed heretic. She must be handed over to secular authorities. The sentence is death. Chapter 7. The paperwork. May 29th, 1431. The final document is prepared. It lists her crimes. It lists her confession. It lists her relapse. It declares her beyond redemption. It orders her transfer to the bailiff of Rouen for execution. The execution method is specified. Burning. Pierre Cauchon signs the document. 42 clerics sign it. It is sealed with wax. It is filed in the church record. Joan is not a person anymore. She is a case number, a closed file, a completed transaction. The English paid 10,000 francs. They received exactly what they purchased. A legal execution, a holy verdict, a heretic erased by the church itself. King Charles cannot argue. France cannot protest. The paperwork is perfect. Chapter 8. The final night. May 29th. Evening. Joan is told she will die in the morning. She asks for a priest. For the first time in months, they allow it. A Dominican friar named Martin Ladvenu enters her cell. He hears her confession. He gives her communion. He weeps. Joan does not weep. She prays. She prays until the sun rises. The guards wait outside. They sharpen their swords, not to use, just to make noise, just to remind her. In the marketplace, carpenters build the platform. They stack the wood high, higher than usual. The English want the crowd to see her. They want her death to be visible from every corner of the square. They want France to watch their saint burn. The executioner tests the wood dry. It will burn fast. He places the stake in the center. Tall, plastered, smooth, impossible to escape. Everything is ready. The paperwork is signed. The platform is built. The crowd is gathering. All that remains is the girl. Chapter 9. The morning. May 30th, 1431. Dawn. The guards unlock Joan's cell. She is wearing a long white robe. They gave it to her for the execution. A symbol of purity. A costume for the crowd. Her hands are tied behind her. She is led through the castle corridors, out into the courtyard. The light blinds her. She has not seen the sun in 5 months. A cart waits. She is placed inside. A cart rolls down Rouen streets. People line the road. Some throw stones. Some shout witch. Some shout saint. Joan looks straight ahead. The cart stops at the old marketplace. The platform rises in the center. Hundreds of people surround it. Soldiers hold them back. Joan is lifted from the cart. She walks toward the stake. Her legs shake, but she does not stop. She reaches the platform. She climbs the steps. The executioner waits. Chapter 10. The stake. Joan stands before the stake. A cleric steps forward. He reads the sentence aloud. The crowd listens. The words are long. Latin mixed with French. Legal terms. Church doctrine. Condemnation. Joan does not listen. She looks at the wood piled around the base of the stake. Dry logs. Kindling. Straw. They stacked it higher than her waist. The executioner takes her arm. He leads her onto the pile. The wood shifts under her feet. She stumbles. He catches her. He leads her to the stake. Her back presses against it. He wraps a chain around her waist, then another around her chest, then another around her throat. Not tight enough to choke, just tight enough to hold. She cannot move. She cannot run. She can only stand. The executioner steps down. A cleric approaches with a tall paper hat, a meter. It has words written on it in black ink. Heretic, relapsed, apostate. He places it on her head. The crowd murmurs. Joan closes her eyes. Chapter 11. The cross. She opens them. "Please," she says. Her voice cracks. "A cross. I want to see a cross." The clerics look at each other. One shakes his head. An English soldier steps forward. He is young, maybe 20. He picks up 2 sticks from the woodpile. He ties them together with a strip of cloth, a crude cross. He climbs onto the platform. He hands it to her, but her hands are bound. He tucks it into her robe, against her chest. Joan looks at him. "Thank you," she whispers. The soldier says nothing. He climbs down. He will have nightmares about this moment for the rest of his life. Another cleric runs to the church of Saint Sever. He returns with a processional crucifix. Large, ornate, gold. He holds it in front of Joan's face. She kisses it. She presses her forehead against it. She whispers prayers. The cleric steps back. He holds the crucifix high so she can see it. He will hold it there until she dies. Chapter 12. The fire. The executioner lights the torch. The flames are orange, bright, hot. He walks to the edge of the platform. He kneels. He touches the torch to the straw. It catches immediately. The fire spreads. Fast. It crawls up the kindling. It reaches the logs. Smoke rises. Thick. Black. It surrounds the platform. Joan begins to cough. The flames climb higher. They reach the base of the stake. The heat is unbearable. Even the crowd steps back. Joan screams. Not words, just sound. Roar. Animals. The flames touch her feet. Her robe catches fire. The cloth burns. The smell fills the square. Burning fabric, burning wood, burning flesh. The crowd covers their faces. Some turn away, some watch. Joan stops screaming. She starts praying. Loud, desperate. "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus," over and over. The flames rise to her waist. Her chest, throat. The smoke chokes her. She gasps for air. There is none, only heat, only fire. Her final word is a shout. "Jesus," then silence. Her head drops forward. The paper hat burns. The chains hold her body upright. The fire continues. It burns for an hour. The crowd does not leave. They watch until the flames die. Chapter 13. The erasure. When the fire goes out, the executioner climbs onto the platform. He pulls aside the charred logs. Joan's body is still recognizable. The English captain orders him to stop. "Burn it again." The executioner stares. "Why?" "So there is nothing left. No relics, no bones, nothing for the French to worship." The executioner adds more wood. He lights the fire again. It burns for another hour. When it dies, he checks again. Bones remain. Fragments of skull, pieces of rib. The captain orders a third fire. The executioner obeys. He burns the remains until they are ash, grey powder, unrecognizable. He sweeps the ashes into a sack. He carries the sack to the Seine River. He throws it into the water. The ashes scatter. They sink. They disappear. The English believe they have erased her. Nobody, no grave, no shrine, no proof she ever existed. Just paperwork in a church vault. A signed confession. A legal execution. A closed file. Chapter 14. The witnesses. But people remember. The soldier who made the cross cannot forget her face. He tells the story in taverns. He tells it until he dies. Martin Ladvenu, the priest who heard her confession, records everything. He hides the document. He keeps it safe. Other clerics who attended the trial begin to talk, quietly, in private. They say the trial was a fraud. They say the verdict was decided before the first session. They say Cauchon twisted her words. They say the English paid for her death. One cleric says he saw Joan's mother collapse when she heard the news. Isabel Rouen, a peasant woman from Domremy, she lost her daughter to politics, to war, to men in robes who called murder justice. For 25 years, Isabel has fought. She walks to Paris. She begs the church to reopen the case. She is ignored. She begs King Charles, the king she helped crown. He hesitates. Joan's conviction makes him weak. If she were a heretic, his coronation was invalid. But if he defends her, he admits the English trial was a lie. He waits until the English are losing, until it is safe. Then he agrees. Chapter 15. The second trial. 1456. 25 years after Joan burned, a new trial begins. Not to convict, to rehabilitate. The judges call 115 witnesses. soldiers who fought beside her, villagers from Domremy, clerics who attended the original trial, guards who watched her in prison. They testify for months. They describe the irregularities, the bias, the threats, the coercion. One witness says Joan was held in a military prison instead of a church prison, violation of canon law. Another says she was guarded by men instead of women, another violation. Another says the guards harassed her, taunted her, threatened her. Another says her dress was stolen to force her back into men's clothing. Another says Cauchon altered court transcripts. Another says English is English paid. The evidence is overwhelming. The 1431 trial was not just. It was an assassination by paperwork. The Rehabilitation Court issues its verdict. The original conviction is declared invalid, null, void, tainted by fraud. Joan of Arc was innocent. The documents are burned, publicly, symbolically. But the record remains. You cannot erase what happened by burning paper. Joan's mother weeps at the verdict. She is 79. She has spent 25 years fighting to clear her daughter's name. She died 3 months later. Chapter 16. The Saint. Centuries pass. France does not forget. Joan becomes a symbol, not just of war, of resistance, of a girl who refused to submit. In 1920, the Catholic Church canonized her. Saint Joan of Arc. The same church that burned her now prays to her. The same institution that called her a heretic now calls her as the paperwork has been rewritten again. But here is what the records do not say. They do not say what it felt like to burn. They do not say how long she stayed conscious. They do not say if she felt her skin blister, if she felt her lungs fill with smoke, if she felt the flames eat through her robe and find her flesh. The documents describe the trial, the charges, the verdict, the execution, but they do not describe the girl, 19 years old, chained in a cell for 5 months, interrogated by men who hated her, abandoned by the king she crowned, burned alive because she refused to say the voices were lies. Chapter 17. The System. Joan did not die because she was guilty. She died because the paperwork said so. 42 clerics signed the document. Theologians from the University of Paris approved it. The Bishop of Beauvais stamped it with his seal. The bailiff of Rouen received it. The executioner followed it. Every step was legal. Every step was documented. Men in authority justified every step. This is how systems erase people, not with chaos, with order, not with mobs, with courts, not with rage, with signatures. The English did not need to assassinate Joan in a dark alley. They purchased her. They tried her. They convicted her. They executed her. All within the law. And when it was over, they had a signed confession, a church verdict, a closed case. No one could call it murder. The paperwork proved it was justice. Chapter 18. The Captain. One detail the records barely mention: the captain who ordered Joan's remains burned 3 times. His name was not recorded, but his reasoning was he feared relics, he feared pilgrims, he feared the French would gather her bones and build a shrine. He feared her death would make her more powerful than her life. He was right. By trying to erase her, he made her unforgettable. The 3 fires did not destroy Joan, they immortalized her. Every piece of ash that floated into the Seine carried her story. Every witness who watched her burn carried her name. Every soldier who mocked her remembered her final word: Jesus. Not a curse, not a plea for mercy, a prayer. The English wanted to prove she was a witch. Instead, they made her a martyr. Chapter 19. The King. King Charles VII never spoke publicly about Joan after her death, not for 25 years. The girl who crowned him, the girl who won his war, the girl who died in an English prison. He said nothing, he did nothing. He sent no ransom, no rescue, no protest. When the English tried her, he remained silent. When they burned her, he remained silent. Only when the war was ending did he allow the rehabilitation trial. Not because he loved her, because her conviction made him illegitimate. If Joan were a heretic, God did not choose him. If Joan was a fraud, his crown was a lie. So he cleared her name. 25 years too late, Politics required her death in 1431. Politics required her innocence in 1456. Joan was useful alive. Joan was dead useful. But Joan herself was never protected. Chapter 20, The Cell. The castle of Beauvais still stands in Rouen. Partially, the tower where Joan was held was destroyed in 1809, demolished, erased, but the foundation remains. Tourists visit, they take photos, they buy postcards. The gift shop sells medals with her face on them. Saint Joan of Arc, patron saint of France, patron saint of soldiers, patron saint of prisoners. The same stones that held her chains now hold a plaque. It says she was martyred here. It does not say 5 men guarded her at all hours. It does not say she begged for a church prison. It does not say her dress was stolen. It does not say she lived in fear every night for 5 months. The plaque makes it sound noble. It was not noble. It was calculated. Chapter 21, The Marketplace. The old marketplace in Rouen is now a square, clean, modern. A tall cross stands where the stake once stood. The Church of St. Joan of Arc was built in 1979. Curved roof, stained glass, quiet. Tourists sit on benches and eat lunch. Children play near the cross. No one screams here anymore. But on May 30th, 1431, hundreds of people stood in this exact spot. They watched a teenager burn. They smelled her flesh. They heard her final word, and then they went home. They ate dinner. They went to sleep. They awoke the next day and continued their lives. Because the system told them it was justice. The paperwork said so. Chapter 22, The Loop. Joan's trial was not unusual. It was standard. Church courts convicted thousands during the Inquisition. They used the same methods: isolation, interrogation, loaded questions, falsified transcripts, coerced legal execution. The system was designed to produce guilty verdicts, and it worked for centuries. Joan was not special because she was innocent. Most of them were innocent. Joan was special because someone reopened her file. Most files stayed closed. Most names stayed erased. Most ashes stayed scattered. Joan's mother fought for 25 years. Most mothers could not. Chapter 23, The Modern Echo. Show trials still exist. Different names. Same structure. Confessions are still extracted under pressure. Transcripts are still altered. Verdicts are still written before the trial ends. Executions are still justified by paperwork. We do not call them heretics anymore. We call them terrorists, traitors, threats to national security. The language changes. The system does not. People still disappear into cells. Guards still watch them. Cameras instead of soldiers. But the isolation is the same. The fear is the same. Trials are still used to legitimize what has already been decided. The paperwork still makes it legal. And when it is over, the remains are still disposed of. Scattered, erased, forgotten, except when they are not. They burned her 3 times. They threw her ashes into the river. They destroyed court records in 1456. They demolished the tower in 1809. They tried to erase every trace. But you know her name. Joan of Arc, Jeanne d'Arc, the Maid of Orleans, a peasant girl from Domremy who heard voices, who led an army, who crowned a king, who was sold for 10,000 francs, who did men who had already decided she would burn try, who died at 19, calling out to God. The English erased her body. They could not erase her file, and now her file is the only one. The trial transcripts, the witness testimonies, the rehabilitation verdict, the records of her execution, words on paper. The same paperwork that condemned her now preserves her. The system that killed her is the only reason you know she existed. Her name was erased. For 25 years, she was officially a heretic, a liar, a witch, condemned by the church, burned by the state, scattered in the river, forgotten by the king. And an old woman refused to stop fighting. Isabel Rome, a peasant, no power, no money, no army, just a mother who would not let them bury the truth. She walked to Paris. She demanded justice. She made them reopen the file. And the system that erased her daughter was forced to admit what it did. But here is what they will never admit. Joan was not the first. She was not the last. She was just the one whose mother would not stop. The cells are still full. The trials are still running. The paperwork is still being signed. Right now, today, someone is chained in a cell, waiting for a verdict that has already been written. The system does not burn people in marketplaces anymore. It just files them away. And unless someone fights for 25 years to reopen the file, the story ends there. Joan's story did not end in the fire. It ended when her ashes hit the water. They sank, they dissolved, they disappeared, but the river carried them downstream, past Rouen, past Paris, into the ocean. The English tried to erase her. Instead, they spread her everywhere. Her name was Joan. She was 19, and now you are the only one who knows what they did to her in that cell.